And we're live.
We are live here on Tuesday, April 14th, 2026, in-house transportation. We have a returning guest. Yeah, I should have said that before. McManaman is back. We had heard possible proposed language for the DMV bill last week, and we're looking for the DMV response. It was so Representative Southworth's here too. We're drawing guests from all over. And welcome back to committee. Appreciate you coming in. Let us know what you see and what the DMV position on it is.
Thank you, sir. My name's Pat McManaman, for those that may not remember me. I'm the supervisor of the education unit for DMV enforcement. Within the education unit, we oversee abandoned vehicles. Our support service person in the office does the abandoned vehicle process. And with that, I signed off on those cases and sign off on the reimbursement for towing companies that put in for the reimbursement that's required by law.
Sorry to ask a question right away. Roughly how many abandoned vehicles go through the process that you're talking about and you signed off?
Regular abandoned vehicles?
Yeah, right. Roughly.
I am probably doing about 30 a week now.
30 a week.
Yes.
They come from
Times 52.
And those
I mean,
are roughly made up, we're not gonna hold you to anything, but just roughly made up of cars just like totally trashed, left on the side of the road, or?
It could be a junk that's left on the side of the road that has no ability to run at all. It's rusted out or whatever. And some of them are newer vehicles that for some reason have been abandoned. Now, the process we go through is we have a timeline that we have to follow when we notify and how long we have to wait for them to make arrangements with the towing company. They can make arrangements with the towing company during that process. They have to pay all the fees that the towing company has incurred to get their vehicle back. Some will, and at the end of that process, we make a phone call to the towing company to say, do you still have the vehicle? If they don't have the vehicle, then we close the case out and it's done. If they still have the vehicle, then we process it to get the title turned over to them, an abandoned vehicle title turned over to them. Today alone, I signed off on 17 cases. So
That's 1,500 a year.
1,500.
I guess I want to back up a little bit and make sure I understand that we're talking about all the same. 1,500 potential abandoned vehicle titles. When we went through abandoned vehicles pretty heavily 2 years ago, 3 years ago, the numbers that we were given was that there's about 500 call-ins for abandoned vehicles on state highways on the course of a year. They're saying that the position that it's tripled to that level in the last 2 or 3 years, or this would include all abandoned vehicles that could be processed. It could have been from an accident, could have been from, these would include the accidents and things like that.
These
We're
would
talking about truly, when they're truly like left and they had to call in the tow truck on the side of the road because there was no one there and it was gone, versus, but you're talking about all of them, abandoned from an accident, from a settlement, from an insurance claim, I mean, from all the sources.
right. We don't.
Okay, that's the big difference here, is that what we were talking about as far as the towers taking their turn in line and having to answer the call from the dispatch and then to come and get it because it was deemed unsafe on the side of the road and whatnot, truly under that abandoned vehicle, which was the original intent of that tow reimbursement, was that, and not all accidents and all insurance claims and all pieces, because they're getting paid other ways through those events potentially. But I just want to clarify, at least get it to my mind, the difference between 500 and 1,500. That's a pretty big difference.
Yes, it is.
We still have 500 or so abandoned vehicles, perhaps, that are truly like, these were ones that, truly left on the side of the road, not necessarily, not out of an accident, but literally, there was the estimate. I don't know if that's a fair estimate, but that was a number stuck in my head from 2 or 3 years ago when we looked at this. I
would say it might be a little more, but I would say that's pretty accurate.
Okay.
When we're talking about this number of abandoned vehicles, it could be, I own an apartment complex and an old tenant left a junker in my parking lot. So I can call in that as an abandoned vehicle, have it towed as an abandoned vehicle, and the tow company would process it as
If you
a,
had all of that universe of all the types of different scenarios, I can see where you get 1,500, but they're not 1,500 vehicles just in the breakdown lane
correct.
on the side of the highway, or for people that have fled to Canada, which is one of the stories we hear up our way a fair amount. So, okay, thank you for clarifying. Thank you for starting that conversation, Representative Powell. Representative Tomlin?
You mentioned, notifying, like if there's any information about the owner of the vehicle, like what is that notification process?
Okay, so once we receive the application from the towing company, we will send a certified letter to the last known address, the last known owner of that vehicle. We then have a time period that we wait. I can't tell you off the top of my head what that time period is, but we have a time period that we wait, and then we send them a second notification by letter. If we don't get a response then, or the towing company does not get a response then, that's what kicks in us contacting the towing company to see if they still have the vehicle.
Is there, so it's just by mail is the, okay.
Correct.
Okay. Do you ever hear from people who like, changed their address and didn't get that message? Or I don't know, I just think about like when I was a tenant, I at one point moved more than 3 times in less than 3 years. And I'm sure I didn't keep my address as updated as I should have on the DMV.
So I know of one case that occurred up in Chittenden County where the vehicle was left at the state police barracks. And the owner, I can't tell you the circumstances of the owner, but the police ended up dealing with the owner and they were not available. So when we sent out the letters, we didn't get any response. That was put in as an abandoned vehicle, was a newer vehicle. When the person finally got released from wherever they were, again, I don't know the circumstances behind the exact case. They came looking for the vehicle.
Yeah.
There are also other cases where the person has not changed their address with us. And therefore we've notified them at the old address and we've gotten calls, well, I moved. Well, under state law, you're required to notify us of a change of address. And there's really, it went through the process, we reached out, we didn't get you and that, so. And we've done the title over to the towing company.
Representative Powell?
So you send out a couple of certified mails to the address. If the certified mail comes back, nobody there, or that person doesn't live there, is there any more search that's done? I mean, like on the internet or anything else like that? Or just the mail?
We send out the mail. We will continue to look in the system to see if it's changed by the time we send out the second.
So if they haven't changed their address in the DMV and they've moved, they're not going to get that mail. I guess they would if they had forwarding mail.
Correct.
But nothing else is done. No other actions taken.
Correct. The way the statute's written, it says we have to notify them by certified mail and then mail. So, and we follow the.
Yeah.
And then if we could find, a landlord that tells us this is where they moved to, we'll notify them at that address.
Yeah.
But as far as,
But nobody knocks on the door and talks to the landlord. Yeah. They get 1,500 a year. Yeah.
Significant asset, if they wanted, if someone could come looking for it too, at some point. I don't know.
I guess there's no difference in the process of the car's a piece of junk. It's really worth nothing. And you send it out, nothing comes back. Hey, this is a really nice car and it's worth, $25,000. Same process. Send them.
Process.
Okay.
so specifically about the Honorable Mike Southworth's amendment.
Well, we're here.
I talked to my director. I also talked to the deputy commissioner when we reviewed this. We don't see where this really would impact DMV's process. This impacts the towing companies more than it would impact us. It doesn't require us to do any type of reporting. It doesn't require us to do any type of checking on it to see what's going on. Doesn't require us to give them the amount of that the vehicle's worth. And that's so quite frankly, we're neutral.
You feel there's a need? I mean, where, even if it's one or two a year, because you probably hear when there's a problem, hey, where's my car? So do you think there's a need? And how often does that happen a year where somebody has a car that's, worth money and the process does, whatever even following the process, something happens and they lose out.
So the state police one, my understanding is it was worth some money. I believe we had to pay out on that. That was prior to me, so,
So even though you followed the process,
EMV had to pay out.
why did you have to?
Court settlement? It was litigation
So you were taken to court by
by the owner. Yes. So do I feel there's a need? I think it would, in that case, it probably would have helped us. If the money that the state would get is earmarked for those type of things. And that might be a savior for us as far as budget. How many cases do we get a year? In the last year, I want to say maybe 6 people called me about it.
Hey, what happened to my car?
Yeah, and then I'll explain the process. I'll send the statute to them, explaining this is what we follow. We follow it to the letter. And a lot of times the second letter doesn't go out on the exact day that the time frame says it. It goes out like a week or so later. It depends on where we are and how many we've taken in over the process. Some weeks are busier, some weeks are not.
Representative McCoy?
Yeah, so that was, I think, maybe the answer to my question. If you take in 1,500 a year, what percentage do you hear, like when you pick up an abandoned vehicle? Like, is there a name and address of these people? And do you ever, like, only 6 people have called back? Are there more people that call and say, yeah, that's mine, keep it, junk it, whatever?
If they call and say junk it, we'll have them notify the towing company.
Okay,
Because once they file the application, we really don't, except for the issue, the title, we don't own that vehicle. And that it's
but you're the ones that reach out to the owner of the vehicle.
yes.
So they're gonna respond to you.
We actually, in the letter, we have them notify the towing company.
Oh, so maybe that question is for the towing company, or how many people actually do call you and say, just junk it, or, no, I'll come on Friday and pick it up. Or something.
So out of the 17 that I cleared today, there were 3 that were picked up. Now that fluctuates. Some weeks it might not be any, some weeks it might be a few.
So to clarify, you're notifying them saying, if we don't hear from you, we're going to issue this abandoned title. You contact them again, and if you don't hear from them, you're going to issue an abandoned title. They can, in the meantime of all of that, go to the towing company. In those ones you just mentioned, 3 people came and got their vehicle. The other 14 issued titles and went to the towing company. And they own 14 vehicles of some sort that have a title.
Some of them are,
And do something with.
some of them are based on the age are junk.
Sure.
Um,
Some of them become, demolition derby cars, some of them become enduro cars, and some of them are sold off as junk, and some are ornaments in their back of their storage fence area for a long time. But anyway, that's the idea, that only people, but it's theirs to do with what they want at this point. And they currently keep all of the value of whatever it is. It's theirs, no matter what it is or whatever the value is. This would say that that person has to then, the towing company that owns the title owes some level of money beyond whatever they sell it for, or whatever they do with it. Either they have to pay into the unclaimed property, or they have to prove that it settled up to the amount they're owed.
And that's the way I understand the statute. the amendment.
How many days, I don't know if you know offhand, but the three people that called in, on average, how many days it took them to get back to you saying, hey, it's, I need that.
I don't, because we don't require the towing company to notify us when it's picked up. We ask
Yeah.
so that we can get it out of the system. But typically, when we call the towing company to see if they still have it, it has reached that maximum time period. And
You're
we're ready to
talking
issue the title.
20+ days of storage fees.
I think it's 30 if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, 30 days.
If I'm not mistaken. Again, I'd have to look in the
Yeah,
statute to
no,
see the
just-
actual timeline.
So if we were going to go forward on this, I guess the question back to the committee, if we were consider the language, I guess we'd have to potentially hear from the state treasurer in terms of how they manage the unclaimed property in this area. And we'd have to hear from the towing companies and what their opinion is of what they should or shouldn't be required to do in terms of selling it or book valuing it or dealing with it in some way. We'd have to hear from the towers in some way, I would assume. We probably may or may not want to hear from the treasurer's office if they have any comment on managing unclaimed property. Is there anybody else that we think we would need to hear from? Representative Thomas?
Perhaps someone who's been impacted by this, whose car has been towed.
Should we find an example of some sort, sounds like?
I can definitely see if I can locate one.
Is there anybody else have any other questions or ideas about whether if we're gonna go forward with this, anybody else that protection wise or other piece of this that we would need?
The only thing I would just say, if we do move forward with this, I would prefer it to be amended on the floor. I just don't want this in the bill and opening up conversation of towing is only becoming a. So if we do go down this path, we could just get up and do, vote on it, like, second or third reading, but that'd be my only 2 cents. I think it's a good idea. But we spent, I don't know, 5-6 years on this issue, we've never come together. But I think that what this is gonna open up, if it stays in our bill, is the storage fees. I think there's gonna be a huge issue. And I think we'll probably avoid that, this sort of just came in, on the floor. Sort of.
Well, like I said, that the resolving storage fees and what's fair and what is not and what applies to what all the different areas of the state we spent.
Yeah.
I would have seconded that part of it. We're not gonna, this committee's not gonna be the only one that's gonna have a say on that.
Yeah.
We're not gonna come to a resolution in the time that we have to what's the treatment of that piece of it and what the rates are and what your storage rates and your towing rates and then the cost to dispose of and. Oh, by the way, is there a fee for this? What does it cost for giving a title to this tow?
There is no fee.
There's no fee.
In fact, and I believe you alluded to it, the towing company can put in a request for $125 reimbursement for the tow to DMV.
And then there is a part of the bill to increase that amount. So,
$250.
$250.
so, yeah. Which it gets into a whole nother discussion depending on how far that opens up issues. It's certainly a commerce issue at that point.
Is there any cap on the storage fees per day or anything they would do over that? So that's what, is it typical? Is there a typical?
I couldn't tell you.
Because you don't see that. You don't
I don't
pay
see,
that, do you?
no, I don't see any of that. The only thing DMV pays out is the $125 if the towing company requests it.
That's my concern.
Yeah, that's why I asked.
If there are any rules, they are municipal at this
Yeah.
point. If there are rules about fees and whatnot, they're on municipal level. There's, it's,
The thing that we have you in here, speaking of the 150, seems like in the past, anecdotally, not a lot of tow truckers put in for that because it wasn't worthwhile. It seemed like we had testimony over the years that money just basically sat there in the bottom of DMV's budget because it wasn't utilized. And I was just wondering if this 250 is going to be more.
I'm sure the $250 will be more of an incentive.
Yeah.
Last week I processed,
it was 44.
Or maybe it's 40.
Yeah, it was 40.
Oh, it's 40. Maybe that's.
We moved it to 125 like 2 years
Yeah,
ago.
So maybe
Maybe
you
say-
see an uptick, I should
Do
say.
you process
Yeah.
approvals for the one?
Last week I processed 6. Our admin person just put, I think it's 8 or 9 on my desk for this week. Over halfway, not even halfway through the week yet, so.
I forgot. Actually.
That's more than what?
I don't just need for some.
It's 10 to 2.
It's like garbage on the side of the road.
Representative Pouch.
What are the qualifications to get on the list to be a tower?
Halfway to driver.
You don't have to show you have insurance or. And where's that list of towers kept?
We don't have a list
The
of,
state police do.
they might have one that they work off of on a rotational basis. I know when I was with Burlington Police, we had a rotational towing that we had to use. And if the company wasn't available, then we went to state.
On this path.
Yeah.
Okay.
But as far as companies,
Jeez.
we get them all.
More time.
A couple of the ones that we got this week are brand new companies I haven't heard of, so.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Good to see you again.
Thanks.
We'll go back into driver's education at another time. Just as, we're gonna probably take a break here until 2:00, but I did happen to listen to a fair amount of testimony at the Senate. Yesterday, they worked a pretty long day for our Senate colleagues. The length of the T-bill is, last I heard, 89 pages. That was before the Ledge Council worked on the issues from yesterday. So when they left for him to go do his homework, it was already at 89 pages. There is everything in the kitchen sink is being, I don't know how they're gonna whittle that out and whatnot. They still, last I heard, I heard vote on Wednesday, now I heard vote on Friday. I've heard a number of different things. We're gonna have to make sure that we have enough time to go back through, depending on what comes out of their finance committee, what we'll have to go through to dig back through that piece. I am unsure, and we're gonna get some further information on this, but there is possibilities of some amendments that will or won't come up that relate specifically to the White Book. And I'm a very short timer here, but I have never seen that happen. I haven't heard of that happening before either. But if that happens, I can assure you that I'm going to find 2 or 3 amendments for work in my town that needs to go in the White Book.
24 days.
On
When are we
the
gonna
Senate
make
side?
Yeah. Rumors in that testimony is that there's amendments to make adjustments to the White Book. And would be directly against the prioritization process. And the idea that if we could be on the committee and put an amendment to put something in the White Book, I'm suggesting that I might be interested in putting something in the White Book. I would suspect that your town might have something they're interested in putting in the White Book.
Other people that might be
But
interested.
if some of you don't have any interest, I would take 2 for my town, if you didn't want to be able to, anyway. That is it is interesting to listen how the sausage is made. We are adjourned until